There is one thing you can be very sure of. There are some Jubilee politicians who are not having a good weekend. Courtesy of the Jubilee Party Parliamentary Group meeting scheduled for tomorrow, June 22nd, 2020. And there are those who are saying, mambo ya Aden Duale kwisha, because they expect him to be removed from his position as majority leader. And then we will finish off with a super fascinating video on what the virus crisis has exposed about Kenyan women and Kenyan men. In my view, a great weekend video. But let us start with these people who are not having a good weekend. This parliamentary group meeting, Monday parliamentary group meeting, you know what makes it worse is that the agenda for these parliamentary group meetings is never given in advance. And so it leaves a lot of room for speculation and a lot of room for fear to develop. You know, this reminds me of our school days. You would hear on a weekend like today, the headmaster wants to see you in his office first thing on Monday morning at 8 o'clock sharp. So you start wondering, this meeting with the headmaster, agenda ni nini? And you start reviewing your activities in recent times. Is this about the time I jumped over the fence to sneak out of school to buy bread? Kwani headmaster alipata hiyo habari? Or this explicit letter you received from your girlfriend, your older girlfriend, who is not in school, painting a very sinful picture of what the two of you will do once schools are closed during school holidays. Kwani hawa watu wanafungua mabarua siku hizi? You get my drift. The fear is real because you have no idea what is coming. Well, there is plenty of speculation that parliamentary group meeting will all be about dealing with a man called Aden Duale, the majority leader, and a known very close friend of Deputy President William Samoei Ruto. Yes, if you didn't know, now you know. They're very close friends. They've been for a long time. Indeed, Aden Duale is the person he is today, courtesy of William Samoei Ruto. But to everybody's surprise, he survived the earlier parliamentary group meeting when others did not. I believe we told you very early on that Aden Duale had a powerful, very unlikely ally in former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga. And it is still not clear why Raila would want to save Duale. There are, of course, many theories and speculations as to why, but it is still not clear exactly why. And even now, it is not clear if Aden Duale still enjoys the support of Raila to remain majority leader. Nobody knows if something has changed. Indeed, it is possible that somebody was playing political games to see how Aden Duale and his allies would react to his being saved. And it is very possible that now things have changed, and that something indeed will happen to Aden Duale and his current position as majority leader. But to make matters even more interesting is what Mheshimiwa Oscar Sudi told us happened during the last PG. Sudi told us they were threatened, referring to people allied to the DP Ruto camp, of course. They were intimidated. Yani, it was such a horror story that brave Sudi told us he is not going back to State House for another PG. And so one thing we should look out for and take careful note of tomorrow is if Sudi will make an appearance. And he just might, assuming that most Kenyans have forgotten what he vowed very recently. In my view, that was a careless statement from Sudi, because all politicians allied to Deputy President William Samoei Ruto normally agree on what they're all going to do. So if they all agree they're going to attend, Sudi will be there. He has to be there. And in the very unlikely event that the DP Ruto camp decides, you make your own decision whether you're going to attend or not. That's very unlikely. But if that were to happen, then maybe Sudi may not be there. But I believe now you get a very clear picture of what is racing through the minds of some politicians about tomorrow's very dreaded PG. You know, it is super fascinating, at least I find it fascinating, that not too long ago, legislators allied to the Deputy President were begging for a parliamentary group meeting. They were complaining that they've not had a parliamentary group meeting for a very long time. And when their complaints landed on deaf ears, they resorted to threatening. We must have a PG. It has been such a long time since we had the last PG. So we must have a PG. Or else. They didn't say or else what. But now, the situation seems to have changed. Because you can be sure most legislators allied to the Deputy President don't want a PG. They don't. Hii PG sasa ni ya nini? Si wale watu walikuwa wanataka kutoa wametoa. Sasa hii ni nini tena? Ai. But let us step back for a minute and analyze this political situation from a bird's eye view. There is a lot of activity in Kenyan politics. A lot of activity. And if you think about it a little more deeply, all this activity is very, very familiar. We have seen it in the past. It is the activity we usually see before a general election. Smaller political parties making pacts with bigger political forces. Very strange bedfellows jumping into political bed together. You must have heard Kalonzo Musyoka and CCM, Chama cha Mashinani, boss, Isaac Ruto, joining the Jubilee Party. Yes, I'm aware not such strong language was used. Kinda language like we are forming an alliance with the Jubilee Party. We have signed a pact with the Jubilee Party. Hiyo yote ni kizungu mingi. If you want to put it very simply, they and their supporters have joined Jubilee, period. All these activities are very familiar to Kenyans. This is what happens in Kenyan politics just before a general election. But then there's no general election due. 2022 is still a bit far away. But the way these politicians are behaving and the way they seem to be in a big hurry, it is clear that some kind of general election is coming before the end of this year. I didn't say general election. I said some kind of general election. And I'm talking about the referendum. A referendum has many similarities to a general election. And we know that the main objective of that referendum is to change the constitution. And we also know that the idea is to change the structure of the executive, introduce a prime minister post, to create a situation where we get away from the winner-takes-it-all approach of our elections in the past, and therefore to reduce tensions during general elections. Older Kenyans will realize that we are going to the Yash Palgai draft of a new constitution. Because we know that one of the principles of the handshake, Raila Odinga, is very much for the introduction of regional governments. So that we have county governments, regional governments who supervise county governments, and then the national government, that is supposed to supervise everything. In other words, tunarudi kwa matapiko. Oh yes, because we rejected the Yashpal Guy draft. We tinkered with it, we adjusted it. And now, what we are saying is that we were wrong. And Yashpal Guy, Professor Yashpal Guy, was right. What Professor Guy saw, over 10 years ago, is what we are finally seeing now. That is really what it is. Now, there's a political analyst I respect who told me the other day, Chris, we're going back in history. History is going to repeat itself in reference to the events that took place at around that time, that we were rejecting and doctoring Yashpal Guy and his team's draft of a new constitution. In 2005, the country went into a referendum. And that referendum, backed by government machinery, fully backed by government machinery, was rejected by the people of Kenya. And so, what this analyst is insinuating, wait for this one, is that we are going to go into a referendum fully backed by the handshake government that will be rejected by the Kenyan people. Yeah. Can that happen? Now, for the sake of younger, very emotional Kenyans, let me remind you guys about the referendum that went through in 2010. The one where Kenyans unanimously voted yes for the new 2010 constitution. Referendums tend to have very many surprises, shocking surprises at that. Because in 2010, a man who was very deeply involved in constructing the new constitution, a man who lobbied successfully for many changes in that constitution, in that draft, before it was presented for a referendum, a man called William Samoei Ruto, after he had done all that hard work, haggling, pushing, etc., when the referendum question came up, instead of joining the yes bandwagon, he led the no camp. The people rejecting the same constitution he had spent so much time and effort helping to construct. Another big surprise, Daniel Toroitich arap Moi, former president, who at that time seemed to be very close to the Kibaki government, who were also backing the new constitution, ended up voting no. And so did the current president, Uhuru Kenyatta. They all voted against the new constitution. And so, don't make any emotional conclusions yet. You may be very surprised when the question is posed to Kenyans that people who are currently bang in the middle of the BBI initiative may end up in the no camp this time round for political reasons. You see, the Kenyan voter currently is in a very ugly mood. And you can't blame them. And so, it is quite likely that even Baba, the people's president, may be in for a nasty surprise or two when he starts campaigning and calling on his supporters to vote yes. They may just vote no. Yes, this is what this political analyst was saying. And it's difficult to argue with them because it is indeed true. History tends to repeat itself. And that should be very interesting. Okay? And therefore, coming back to our main topic of today, tomorrow's PG is of course designed to smoothen the way for the coming referendum. And so, if you know for sure that Aden Duale will be a hindrance to this, then you can be sure is out. But if you're sure he will help push through the referendum manenos, then you can also predict he will survive. Make sure you catch part 2 of this video, where I explore the very, very fascinating topic of how this virus crisis has exposed Kenyan women and indeed Kenyan men for what they really are. Until then, this is Chris Komekucha.